Hi, geometry students. This is Mrs. Larson. We're going to talk today about midpoints and how to find a midpoint on a segment. First, we'll just take a look at one that's just horizontal like this. If I want to know the midpoint of A to B, pretty much all I have to do is count the squares. This segment is 10, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So halfway, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be right there. Would be the midpoint. Pretty easy to see that there. If it wasn't an even number, then I'd have to go with a half a square. I think this one is 7. So half of 7 is 3.5. So I'll go 1, 2, 3.5 squares. And that would be my midpoint for that segment. But what we're going to focus on mostly today is what do I do when I have a line that's not just exactly horizontal and then I want to find the midpoint of this line here. You could kind of guess and check or eyeball it, but there is actually a formula that we use to get the midpoint. So I'm going to come back to that graph in just a second, and I want to talk about the midpoint formula. Okay, so the midpoint formula, you have 2 points, x1, y1. So, if I have my 2 points, I'll call that one A, x1, y1, and point B, x2, y2. To find the midpoint, what you do basically is you just find the average of the x values and the average of the y values. Average meaning add them up and divide by 2. So your answers could have halves in them or they'll be whole numbers, but that's the formula. So the picture that we just showed you, if I can pull this up side by side here, has the point -1, 2, and 3, -6. And if I want to find the midpoint using the formula, what I'm going to do is find the average of the 2 x values and the average of the y's. So I'm going to have -1 plus 3 over 2, because there's your x and your x. And I'm going to have 2 plus -6 over 2. That's going to be my midpoint. So in this case, -1 plus 3 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. That's the first one. 2 plus -6 is -4. -4 divided by 2 is -2. So my midpoint, and hopefully that'll make sense, is at 1, -2. There's my midpoint. And it visually looks pretty good. I also could do a little slope triangle here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So it did work. Let's do another one without a graph picture. Let's just give you some points and we'll get the midpoint on this one. If my points are at -5, -18, which again, I wouldn't graph because it's probably too big for a graph, and then B is -10, -4, I'm going to use the formula. So -5 plus -10 over 2, and -18 plus -4 over 2 gives me my midpoint. You can use a calculator if you need it. That's -15 divided by 2, which is -7.5. It's a half there. And then this is -22 over 2, which is -11. So that would be my midpoint for that one. And then I'll do one more here for you. This one I'll put on a graph afterwards just to see, double check. So if I have 4, -3 as my points for a start with, I'd go 4 plus -3 over 2 and 1 plus -2 over 2. It's always over 2. We're always doing the average. So this is going to be 4 plus -3 is 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. And then 1 plus -2 is -1 divided by 2 is -0.5. So let's see what that one looks like just on a graph, just to see how that looks. So if I have the original points here at 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and a -3, -2. So here's your A and here's your B. Where's the midpoint? We decided it was at -1/2, which looks right, like right about there. And then lastly, for a little challenge, I thought I'd throw this out for you. What if I have one of the points and the midpoint, but I don't have the original point B? So if I do that one, I can use the formula backwards, but this one I'm actually just going to be counting squares. So point A is at -2, -4, There's point A. The midpoint is at 0, -1. There's my midpoint. The question is, where's point B? Over here. So I can just do that by counting a slope triangle. This is up 1, 2, 3, and right 2. So if I go up 1, 2, 3, and right 2, there's my point B. And you certainly, which is at 2, 2. So the answer would be 2, 2. You could always double check that with the formula. -2 plus 2 is 0, divided by 2 is 0. -4 plus 2 is -2, divided by 2 is -1. So it worked. So that would be all I have today for the midpoint formula.